Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Retro Chat podcast. We are coming to you live from Weymouth in Dorset. It's Wednesday night. It's 7:30 p.m. My name is Andy Evans, but I'm not on my own for a change. Joining me on the line, on the screen, on the show. It's like the old days where you say on the line. Doesn't matter. It's this guy over here. It's MOS community member, the man who seemed to have his own corner every Sunday night on the Ministry of Slam. He's known as Berrocleese. It's Paul Barrow. Paul, how you doing, my friend?
Hello there. I'm not too bad, thank you, man. I'm not too bad. How are you doing?
Really good, really good. Welcome to the Retro Chat podcast. Great having you here, and your second time in a week being on camera as part of the MOS Network.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to punish you guys. Like that's just how it's gonna be. I was determined to never appear on camera. I'm like Vince Russo in WCW in like 2000s. I'll never appear on camera. I'll be here every week.
in fairness, mate, you've got more talent than Vince Russo in the first 60 seconds of the actual podcast. So
thank you. Although not too high a mountain to climb.
Now, Paul, before we crack on with the show this week, and before we start doing the promotions, something happened yesterday on the MOS Network podcast feed. And if you want to find out what that is, and go subscribe, search for Ministry of Slam, because you debuted the Turner Years,
yes.
A bi-weekly podcast on the feed. What's it about? Tell us a bit more about the Turner Years.
The Turner Years is a podcast about Jim Crockett Promotions. Let's see if I can say it right. Jim Crockett Promotions, and it turning from Jim Crockett Promotions into WCW. I found that a very interesting time period. So you've got the early shows will be very much territorial, and you'll kind of see how the territory is being run, and then it'll transfer into WCW, early WCW in the 90s and 89 and that kind of thing. It's such a different type of show to the stuff that I know I grew up on. Like I grew up on 90s WWF for obvious reasons, because we're from the UK. That is primarily what we got exposed to. And looking back, you see documentaries like the Ric Flair documentaries and the rise and fall of WCW, and you think, oh yeah, people talk about the territories and they talk about all this kind of thing. And you go, oh yeah, but you don't actually see any of it or know anything about it. So I'm kind of delving back into that past that we don't know anything about, and discovering, is it as good as people think it was, or is it like rose-tinted glasses? And I've had a tremendous time so far looking at these shows, because there's just a lot of stuff out there that you hear half the story, and then when you read more into it, you hear the whole story, and it's just a great deal of fun. I hope that people check it out.
Well, the feedback so far on the Discord as part of the MOS community has been absolutely phenomenal. Everybody is loving it. I had a preview of it, so I listened to the before it was actually released, and I was hooked on it. And what I love about the show, Paul, is the fact that if you think about professional wrestling, and you mentioned 90s growing up, we were 80s, 90s here in the UK. We had the WWF. We didn't get WCW really until Nitro on TNT. A lot of the shows that you're going to be covering on the Turner Years, if you haven't got the WWE Network, or until the network came out, you would never have seen them. No, and there's some classics that you're going to be looking at.
I remember growing up, and you get Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and they'd have the top 10s for both companies. So number one would always be Hulk Hogan for the WWF, and number one would always be Ric Flair for WCW.
Yeah.
And then you'd get a list of names that you heard of every month, but you never saw. So Dr. Death would be on there, and you'd look at it. If you got old issues, you'd be like Mike Rotundo, and you'd be like, that looks a bit like IRS. And it's that kind of era where you're kind of like, oh, I never saw these people. It was almost like you get whispers in the playground of stuff, and then it's just a really weird time to look at a place, especially if you listen to the first episode of Turner Years. It looks like it's not on its last legs, but it looks like it's trying to do something it's not prepared for. The next episode, which I'll give you a small preview of, the next episode of Turn of Years is Clash of the Champions 1, which takes place in Greensboro. And the difference in reactions between Bunkhouse Stampede and Clash of the Champions 1 is night and day. And there is an old I think I might say this in the episode, so forgive me. There is an old Ric Flair saying that says, if we'd have just stuck to Greensboro, we'd still be going today. And you think, oh yeah, Rick, whatever. But looking at that show in particular, you can see, oh yeah, these are your people. These people have got no truck with WWF at all.
Like, what are the future plans? Because you've done, that Clash of the Champions is a cracker. It's a great one, and that really kind of sets the scene for where the NWA was going to go, and the Turn of Years and Crockett. Are you going to be doing watch-alongs at any point, or recording the watch-alongs or anything like that?
The plan at the moment is to do bi-weekly, every Clash, and every pay-per-view once it becomes WCW. Watch-alongs could be a thing. We'll see how that goes. But the interesting thing is, right now on the network, 1988 isn't a complete year for television. You can get bits and pieces, but I've had to hunt down clips of things to talk about I'll go a bit behind baseball, as the lads say, and I'll say that we've recorded the next 2 to try and get ahead of the game, and there is a section in 3 that I had to hunt down clips on YouTube to explain to myself what had happened between one show and the other. Now, once the shows become readily available on the network, because there are complete years of WCW, I will probably watch all of those, and you'll get a much more in-depth. Here is what's gone on the TV. We won't be reviewing TV episodes, because that'll get a bit. With the 80s, it's very much mostly squash shows, so it's like, I can just give you a list of who beat who, and here's the angle on the show. But it's basically going to be pay-per-views, the Clash of the Champions, and then when we get to Nitro, we'll cover the important shows from there. The plan, or the hope, is to do every WCW major event.
Oh, it's going to be fantastic. I mean, one of the things that, if you listen to the Ministry of Slam, you'll know Lee is a fan of the Conrad Thompson podcast, like Jeff Jarrett and Jim Ross and Eric Bischoff, and I'm a fan of them as well. But to have a British take on it, from when we've never actually seen the events, it's a really unique take, and I wish you all the very best, because it is an absolutely cracking show. Just episode 1, and it's available now on the Ministry of Slam podcast feed. All you need to do is go to any good podcast provider and search for Ministry of Slam. Subscribe, and any show that we do on the network, whether or not that's the Retro Chat, whether that's Ministry of Horror, whether that's Slam, whether it's the Turn of Years, will be on that feed, and you will get it. But check it out, because you're not going to want to miss it. It's a cracking little show, and I wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much.
It's a really good show. Now, Paul, before we crack on with Backlash 2004, we've mentioned the other shows that are on the network, but let's give them a bit of a shout out. Ministry of Horror, live every Tuesday at 8:00 across all of the Information Superhighway. YouTube at Ministry of Slam. I was going to say Retro Chat. YouTube, searching for the MOS Network. Twitch.tv/the MOS Network as well. That's Tez, who's doing some cracking shows in the horror field. I've never been the biggest fan of horror, but he's converted me. It's a really good watch and a really good listen. The Turn of Years, obviously, Tuesdays on podcast. And the flagship show is Ministry of Slam, every Sunday, 7:00 live, again, on all of the normal channels across the MOS network. Lee and Lawrence, for a minimum of 2 hours of pro wrestling for the non-serious fan. And Lee and I did the show on Sunday. We were covering for Lawrence, who was away. It's normal service back again. Looking forward to it.
While you say that, I just want to say that was an excellent show on Sunday. Well done. I know you host this, but it's different when you're brought in as a. I know you did the Squared Circle originally, and you were on the the old school Ministry of Slam, obviously.
I was on old school Ministry of Slam, yeah. Then the
But,
Square Circle, yeah.
It's difficult when you're not doing it every week with someone to then find that rhythm, and you guys just hand in glove. It was great.
Well, thanks, Paul. In fairness, we did it for long enough. Lee
True,
and I.
true.
It's been a few years since we've done a 2-man show, but it was good fun. Although I do realize at the end of it that I do not want to go back to doing a weekly wrestling live show again. The amount of content you had to watch,
yeah,
just to kind of be able to talk about it, from WrestleMania to Raw. I've watched Raw and NXT 2.0, which I never watch.
To be fair, you did pick you didn't pick it, but it is this time of year. It is WrestleMania.
It is. Mind you, saying that, September the 3rd, WrestleMania 2, because the WWE are coming. Let's touch on this very quickly because we're the first show on the network to actually cover it.
Yeah, we
are. WWE UK stadium show for the first time in 30 years since SummerSlam of 1992 at the Principality Stadium in Cardiff. What do you think of it?
I think it's going to be a good show. I think it'll be more akin to one of the Saudi shows or the Australia Super Show. So whether or not it'll just be a lot of matches, or whether it'll be like SummerSlam where it will more impact what we'll call for a lack of a better term, WWE canon. That'll be a thing they'll decide. I think for UK fans it'll be it's a big deal. It's a huge deal. My thing was how many other companies are then going to go that weekend. We got to get something. Hopefully, another couple of shows will happen around there. I mean, I've never even been to a stadium for a non-worked event, shall we say? So I've never actually sat in a stadium and been around that many people for an event. So this is definitely one even I'm looking at and being like, yeah, I want to go to this.
I went to Wembley a few weeks ago to watch England versus Cote d'Ivoire in an international friendly. And it was a phenomenal experience, the atmosphere, being with that amount of people. So, I've already pre-registered my interest in the tickets. If you haven't done it, do it now because they are going to sell out.
You need 2 seconds. I'm just kidding. I've already done it.
You've already done it.
Yeah.
GX Glenn on the Discord has already put a message in saying, make sure you pre-ordered your tickets. We've done that. We're all sorted. It's going to be an eventful day. Saturday, September the 3rd. In Cardiff, in Wales, beautiful city, beautiful country, a fantastic stadium. This is going to be one night. Now, the question is, what do you think we're going to get? Now, you've said, is it going to be just a card? Is it going to be like the Saudis? Is it going to be something like the greatest UK Royal Rumble ever? Or would it be something a bit better than Insurrection?
I'm hoping. My expectation. I'm trying to. As much as I've said it'll be a great event because it'll be in a stadium, my expectation is something along the lines of a Saudi show that I can't think of the name of.
Yeah,
whatever they're calling the latest ones of these. I think we'll get a few returning old timers, and I think they'll do their best to put on a huge show. I'm wondering if, because there was rumors of this for a while.
Yes,
there was. It's in September. Is September Survivor Series?
No, November is Survivor Series.
November Survivor Series.
That's why they call it the Thanksgiving tradition.
Oh, of course they do. Or they used to. They don't do that anymore.
No, they haven't done that since about 1992.
But give me a break.
But no, that it is. You've watched a lot of wrestling this past week, Paul. We're going to let you off, mate.
Yeah,
right? We're going to let.
Some might say too much. Not me, but some may say too much.
Some might say. I think the Sunday morning of WrestleMania Night 2, I think we were both saying that in the early hours. It was kind of.
I mean, I took a photo for the Discord on that, and I just look like I'm drunk. I look like I'm drunk on wrestling. Like my eyes all over the place because I get a lazy eye when I'm tired. So that looks like I'm looking into the next room. Like my mouth's agape, and I'm just kind of like I should have gone to bed 2 hours ago.
Yeah, and instead you put yourself through Johnny Knoxville and Sami Zayn. So
yes, and then I was like, oh yeah, Raw, why not?
Yeah, I was dying on my... Anyway, that's a different story. Right, let's move on to tonight's topic. Now, we're going to be going back to April the 18th of 2004 in Canada for WWF Backlash. And it actually took place at the Rexall Place venue in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Attendance was 13,000 fans. Buy rate was 295,000. Now, this is the era of the brand split. So this is a Raw only pay-per-view event. It's the first one coming off WrestleMania 20. So hence you're going to get a couple of Raw rematches on this, including the world title, the World Championship triple threat match between Chris Benoit, Shawn Michaels, and Triple H. You're going to get Jericho versus Christian with Trish Stratus, that spin-off again, and Randy Orton, Mick Foley, or Cactus Jack. That's what this card was built around, those three big main events. But before we do that, Paul, we always do something on Retro Chat called What Happened When? Yes, I have stolen that from Conrad Thompson. Gimmick infringement. Please don't sue me.
I wasn't going to say a single word. You got yourself in that, mate.
I just thought I'd get it in before Conrad, tries to sue me. So what we do is we look back at the day of the event in history. Now, this time, because I've got a wrestling expert with me, we're focusing purely on professional wrestling, and we're going to go back to some interesting dates in the calendar. Going to kick off in 1982. So what do you think happened on April the 18th, 1982? And I will just stress, guys, Paul doesn't know anything about what's coming up.
No, I'm about to look like a real muppet, so right. Well, that's not the big event, is it?
It's not it's a big event, but not for the WWF or for the NWA. It's for the AWA.
82. So, it's not WrestleMania.
Okay, so it's Vern Gagne's promotion. Yeah. And the event took place in St. Paul, Minnesota. And it's notable because it was the night which Nick Bockwinkel lost the AWA World Heavyweight Championship to Hulk Hogan. So it was due to the fact that both wrestlers used foreign objects during the match. Bockwinkel was actually then awarded the championship back by AWA president Stanley Blackburn just a week later. But on this night in 1982, Hulk Hogan became the AWA World Heavyweight Champion. And that was before moving with the red and yellow to Vince and the World Wrestling Federation.
That could have gone very differently if Hulk Hogan had been like, yes, you can have 50% of my merchandise sales. Because Hogan had been on a tour, I believe, in Japan.
Yeah.
And then when he came back, he found out that Nick Bockwinkel, Vern Gagne had been selling T-shirts with his name on.
Yes.
And refused to give any money. And that's when he was just like, I am leaving. So.
And that's when history was made. Hulkamania or Vince-mania became a thing, Impressive. Now, we're now going to move to 1985. We're going to go to Tokyo, Japan. Okay, I'm not going to ask you to work this one out because it was in Tokyo, Japan for New Japan Pro Wrestling that Bruiser Brody made his debut and fought Antonio Inoki to a double count out draw. And that match is on apparently New Japan World. In 1996, CMLL held a live event in Mexico City. The main event was Rayo del Jalisco Jr. defeating Apollo Dante in a 2 out of 3 falls match to become the CMLL World Heavyweight Champion. In 2000 was a SmackDown event being held in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and it's known for one iconic match. Can you remember what that match was on April the 18th, 2000 on SmackDown in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania? That's a clue.
Okay, so it's in Philly. So I'm going to that. It's not going to be an event or a match.
It's a match. It's a historic match.
Oh, this is this where Triple H beats Taz?
Yes. And why was it historic?
Because Taz was the ECW champion,
exactly.
having just beaten the ECW champion Mike Awesome, who was under a WCW contract. That's in an ECW ring. So
Absolutely.
ECW basically as like the middlemen.
Yes. So that's it. That was a historic moment. Triple H, the
I
world
got one.
heavyweight champion, beat the ECW world champion Taz. Taz had obviously signed with the WWF in September of 1999. But because Mike Awesome, as you said, was moving to WCW, Vince McMahon and Paul Heyman came to an arrangement where Taz could go back to ECW, beat Awesome for the belt, and then return it and put it for the first time on WWF television, which was an historic moment.
Yep.
And it was really the last time ECW was
It's one of the last times ECW is ECW for a start.
Exactly. Oh, do you know what? I saw a great tweet today. I'm just going to go off topic for a second. Saw a great tweet where somebody went, this young woman said, the amount of blood and violence on AEW is really getting me down. I wish they would cut it back now. And this bloke replied back going, well, you obviously wouldn't have liked ECW then. She went, I loved ECW. I can't remember seeing Sheamus ever bleeding that much.
Oh, that's precious. That really is.
I had to say it for a retro chat. I had to put that joke out there.
Yeah,
that is a legit tweet. If I can find it again, I will reshare it on the retro chat feed.
That's amazing.
It's cracking, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Really makes me smile. I think it's one of those that goes, how old am I? Like,
yeah. You sat there thinking, oh yeah, you think about Taz, you think about Sandman, you think about Sabu, you think about the kendo stick, you think about Tommy Dreamer. Please give me one more. Oh no, she's thinking about Sheamus and Bobby Lashley. Right, let's do it, Paul. Let's talk about Backlash 2004. So you and I have both seen the event. We've watched it. We've got some notes on it.
Yes.
What do you remember about the year of 2004 in WWE?
I remember that Mania for obvious reasons, and I remember the brand split being much more strictly enforced, to be honest, than it is now.
Yeah,
and they were really trying to make it a thing where they do not cross. There is no. And it ended up with the cross brand, not the individual brand pay-per-views that they tried for a while, a couple of years, I think.
Yeah,
but I remember Evolution being a thing and kind of being lukewarm on it because I didn't like the old Triple H promo to start the show for most weeks. I basically remember the world title picture mostly. That's usually where my mind goes to for most years until I have a sit down and a proper think about it.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. It's known for the brand split. It's known for those brand specific pay-per-views, and they go so bad as being the Great American Bash that was SmackDown. But I mean, 2003, 2004, really with the brand split in place, you did get some classic matches. And WrestleMania 20 was kind of the pinnacle of that. If you think about that triple threat match, the Benoit, the Shawn Michaels, the Triple H. If you think about Eddie Guerrero, if you think about Chris Benoit and Chris Jericho, if you think about Chris Jericho and Christian, if you think about a young legend killer, a young Randy Orton.
Yes, certainly watching this show, I was like, oh yeah, this is Randy Orton.
Yeah,
because, he's like he's someone else.
Yeah,
really is
so young. Makes me feel old. But like I said, there was 3 main stories in this card, and we'll talk about the world title match in a minute because obviously that's controversial for a different reason.
Yes.
And there was a moment in there which I actually forgot they did on camera, and I thought they would have edited it out of the network.
Yeah, it's the same. I've got the same.
But we'll touch on that in a minute. The second main event, the co-main event, was the hardcore match for the Intercontinental Championship between Randy Orton and Cactus Jack. And this really stemmed back from the Royal Rumble after Foley eliminated Orton from the Rumble match.
Yeah.
Orton then came back with a steel chair. They brawled up the ramp. It was WrestleMania 20. It was Evolution, Orton, Batista, and Flair against the Rock and Sock Connection. And we all expected, I think, Rock and Flair to go over, but Rock and Foley to go over.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. On March the 29th episode of Raw, Foley then challenged Orton to a hardcore match for the championship at Backlash. Orton accepted. Mick then added another stipulation that Evolution would be banned from ringside. So no game, no Batista, no Nature Boy Ric Flair. We get to the match at Backlash. What did you think of it?
First of all, before we even get to the match, what I found really interesting was the opening promo package. Not for the match, because the opening promo package of the match is excellent. The opening promo package for the pay-per-view, the only thing on it is the triple threat.
Yes.
They do not mention Mick Foley versus Randy Orton, which I was shocked by, because at least for me at the time, this was at least even for my excitement level. You know, I am still an unapologetic Foley guy. So him doing this and possibly being even a shadow of what he once was a big deal to me. And then you get to the match, and these days my expectations for combat matches have been set quite. I'm not going to say low, because that feels mean, but they're
low. It's low.
Yeah, they're what I'd call an appropriate level of expectation. And Foley comes into this match, and he looks the best I've ever seen him. That includes him being Mankind, originally being Cactus Jack in WCW. He looks slim, trim, and ready to go for Mick Foley.
Yeah,
he looks real good. I was shocked, because the comebacks I remember after that, you know, versus Carlito and all that other stuff, he certainly wasn't. He was there to collect money. There's nothing wrong with that. But this time it was pretty much, I'm going to show people that I could still do this.
And they certainly did that. Yeah, they certainly did that, didn't they? They pulled everything out of the bag. I mean, that match had more blood than I've had ketchup on mistaken chips. I mean, it was everything. You know, you had the barbed wire, the baseball barbed wire. You had the gasoline coming out. You had the Eric Bischoff promo being cut.
Now, I haven't watched the Raws leading up to this event or anything. Was there at any time that he mentioned fire in a promo? Because Bischoff comes out and says the fire marshal will shut this show down if you do that. And I was like, okay, but then why do the spot? You know, why put that in people's heads if you can't do it? So had he mentioned, like, I'm going to set you on fire, I don't know.
I can't remember. That's a really good question. I can't actually remember that, because there's so many rules.
There are certain aspects of this pro. I remember Orton spitting in Foley's face, and Foley walking away, which was before the Royal Rumble and all that kind of thing. I remember Mick Foley taking a very painful looking fall down the stairs to set this kind of thing up.
Yeah.
But there are certain things, obviously, that you're just, after all this time, are not going to remember.
There was the moment I remember where Randy Orton called him a coward because he didn't appear. He called him out, and Foley didn't return to ringside or didn't show up on the week. And that, I think, was one of the big catalysts. But Eric Bischoff was playing the really Weasley, cowardly general manager, you know, and was in Evolution's back pocket, because he was the one who awarded Triple H the World Heavyweight Championship on an episode of Monday Night Raw. So, you know, I think that's playing into part of it. He's trying to protect Randy Orton. He's trying to basically put it back onto Foley. You know, you do this, we'll shut it down. That's it. Done.
Yeah.
You know,
the show will be stopped.
Yeah.
Not just this match, the entire show.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it wouldn't be, would it? Because all they would do is put the barbed wire back out.
Yeah.
But still, you know, but there's that moment where you see Foley thinking and going, I'm going to do it anyway.
That's what the great ones do. The great ones can take a moment like that. They can, I mean, I'm not the guy's biggest fan, but Hulk Hogan can look to the crowd, look to his opponent, and that's all it takes. Bobby Heenan was the same. Foley was excellent at, he'd get his opponent in a position and he'd look around and it's almost like you could see the wheels in his head turn. I could jump off there. I could jump off there. I could hit him with this. Or does that thing over there looks like it's more fun to hit him with. So that's wrestling. That's getting the most out of the least, which is the whole point of the whole point is not to kill yourself. I mean, don't get me wrong. These two killed each other.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
They didn't, because to me the big spot of the match we haven't even talked about. The big spot of the match is Orton taking that bump into the thumbtacks.
Yeah, I mean that was just sick. Even we've talked earlier on about ECW and Impact as well. Were quite known for doing the thumbtacks with Abyss. This was a whole new level because that shot where Randy Orton is walking up the ramp saying, "That's it, I've had enough." He's going out the back.
Yeah.
Before he takes the bump off the stage, just seeing the thumbtacks down the arm in his back. Yeah. Jerry Lawler's commentary. But Jerry Lawler's commentary going, all those thumbtacks in Randy Orton's beautiful skin. It really set the scene, didn't it? And you did go, ow, damn it, that's going to hurt. And same with the bed of barbed wire.
The entire match is, again, a Foley staple. Get the other guy more respect. Get the other guy ready to face the top star. Because he did it for... he did it for The Rock. He did it for Shawn Michaels at Mind Games.
Yeah.
Nobody remembers this, but Shawn Michaels had not nobody remembers it, but Shawn Michaels had a very high-flying style, but the Mind Games is 95, 96?
96.
96. He had a very athletic style. He was very high-flying, but he wasn't the most high-impact of guys. He wasn't someone who was going to get on you and pound you into submission. And in a single match, Foley took Shawn Michaels, who is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, and made you believe, oh, this guy can kick my ass. And he does the same thing for Orton, because the thing on Orton was his dad was a wrestler. He's a pretty boy. He's going to get a push. He doesn't really deserve it. He doesn't love this, whatever. And then they both show you, no, look, this is what I'll do. I'll take the worst bump you've ever seen, and I'll just keep going. And Foley's the perfect guy to do it with, because he...
Absolutely. I mean, this was really the match that set Randy Orton up for the world title run. I mean, it was at SummerSlam of that year where Orton
beats the
became
champion.
world heavyweight champion.
Yeah. He becomes the... Now, my thoughts on that are a bit off, because I believe he only became that champion because Brock had left, and they needed a new youngest ever world champion.
I agree. No, I totally agree, and that's a conversation for a whole different time.
Sorry, you're gonna have to keep reeling me in, because I'll keep going.
No, it's fine. This is great. It's nice having a co-host to bounce off. But this match, I think, really took the Legend Killer from here to the top of the pinnacle, and could show that he could hang with the big boys. And Foley, whether or not you said sounds like Dusty Rhodes, whether or not that Foley was past his prime or in his prime or whatever, he was and still is a main name performer. And to get a win over him, not only did the Legend Killer it set him up for that future world title run and being associated as well with Evolution.
Yeah, they also did something really clever with Foley. They advertise it as Mick Foley. It's called Mick Foley all the way through it, but it's Cactus Jack.
Oh yeah,
he's not coming out there as Mankind. He's certainly not coming out there as Dude Love. He's wearing a Wanted t-shirt. He's in the old checkerboard. I can't think what it's really called. A tartan.
Tartan.
And they start more and more referring to him as this sick individual, Cactus Jack. They'll keep dropping Foley in, and then they'll change it to Cactus Jack. So it's more like, not only did he beat Mick Foley, he beat the most hardcore, sadistic incarnation of that wrestler.
The guy who took Sting to the limit, the guy who'd been in the dumpster matches, the king of the death matches, he was it. Now, Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter always does his predictions, his 5-star rating system.
Yeah.
And this match got 4.5 stars out of 5. In fact, it was only 2 matches on that card that got 4.5 stars. And obviously we'll touch on the other one. And it's not going to take a genius to work out what that other match was.
Well, Flair versus Shelton was...
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to another match that we're going to talk about now. And this is featuring actually 3 guys who are no longer in the WWE. 2 of them are in AEW. One of them is Le Champion, and the other one is a manager. Chris Jericho and Christian Cage with Trish Stratus in his corner. Now, at WrestleMania 20, Christian defeated Jericho, and after the match, it was Trish Stratus, who was the on-screen girlfriend, lucky git, of Chris Jericho, turned on him and joined with Christian. On the April 5th episode of Raw, Christian announced that he would be teaming up with Stratus to take on Jericho in a handicap match at Backlash. Well, that handicap match didn't happen. It became a one-on-one between Christian Cage and Chris Jericho. Stratus didn't get herself involved. It was an interesting match. What's your take on it?
I don't know. It's a handicap match, but it's a tag handicap match.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
there is a couple of spots where Jericho's in trouble, so I'm going to get in and kick him a couple of times. It's like a Bobby Heenan handicap match. Someone's in trouble, or a Jim Cornette handicap match. Get in, kick the guy. The moment he moves, tag back out.
Yeah,
it's easy. It's easy heat, but it's not bad heat. It's not. It's easy, but not cheap heat. If you know what I mean.
But I'll tell you what, Trish and Christian had a lot of heat, because the minute the music played for Christian, which was that orchestral opera music that he came out with, that I always thought suited him down to the ground. That crowd in Calgary, that in Alberta, just went absolutely mental. You could tear the boos off the place. And it's surprising because Trish, up to that point, had been one of the biggest faces in the women's division.
That's why it worked, because they very rarely do this, but WWE are very good at the romance angle.
Yeah.
Like, they're very good at there was this is going to sound ridiculous, but there was that kind of sweet angle they did with Molly Holly and Spike Dudley.
I remember that.
And it was like Romeo and Juliet. Like, the two families couldn't stand each other, but the two little ones were like, I kind of like you. And then they brilliantly were like, Austin's going to beat up Spike.
Yeah, you knew it was coming.
Yeah.
It's a bit like R-Truth in Dana Brooke and Akira Tozawa.
And they did it not this WrestleMania, but last WrestleMania. Look at Otis and Mandy Rhodes.
Yeah.
Rose, not Rhodes. Oh.
All right, what are you trying to suggest, Paul? Cody's just gone back to the WWE.
Well, I'll just keep my mouth shut for now. But
if Eden Styles suddenly materializes in NXT 2.0, you know we're in trouble, right? These three are just Hall of Fame worthy superstars. Trish already is in the Hall of Fame. Jericho and Christian should be in the WWE, and you've got to imagine at some point
it will be eventually. Sooner or later, their career will end, and they'll get put in then.
Yeah,
I know Vince isn't the biggest fan of Christian, but
which is a shame, because Christian is a great worker if he's given the opportunity to work. And I'm not, we're not talking about modern product here at the moment, but he hasn't really had that in AEW. He's had a couple of good matches, but nothing stellar. He's more of a manager now.
I'm beginning to think whether he wants to. He's getting on. Just because he can work, maybe he's like, I'll do a couple of matches a year, maybe four or five, and that'd be enough for me. I mean, because he certainly could do weekly from an in-ring psychologically standpoint, But we got to remember he was kind of forcibly retired by WWE, and then they cleared him to come back, and he went to AEW. So whether or not it was going to be a turn up every now and then to do a thing, or you're now in SmackDown every week.
Well, it could have been that because he was out with concussion.
Yeah.
So, it was a concussion angle that took him out of the retirement. Dave Meltzer gave this match 3.25 stars out of 5.
You said to me that the crowd was incredibly hot.
Yeah.
And it's not that I disagree, but I didn't find the crowd. I don't know whether they were not mic'd correctly, but I thought for the whole night they were quite quiet, apart from 2 matches, the main event and the Cactus Jack match.
Yeah, I'm not saying they were loud throughout the entire show, but definitely on that entrance of Christian.
I found that they popped for entrances,
yeah,
and they popped for a big move.
Yeah,
but I wasn't frustrated with them, but I was starting to think, are you not mic'd correctly?
I think the problem with it is the fact that they may not have had a show that often.
Yeah,
coming into Canada, it's Edmonton, Alberta, which isn't the biggest Canadian province. If they'd gone to Calgary or Toronto or something like that, you might have had a bit more vocal. And it was a Raw event.
Yeah, I mean, if we are we going to do all the matches?
We are going to do all the matches. We're just
cool.
The key ones at the moment, and then we'll go through.
I was going to say, because some of the stuff they were served up, I'm not expecting them to go crazy for. But
you mentioned Ric Flair earlier on. I mean, you're kicking it off with Shelton Benjamin versus Ric Flair. It's not really gonna do it.
Yeah, I'll talk about that when we get there.
We will. Jericho won this match by pinning Christian after throwing him onto Stratus and executing an enziguri. So it was a nice little finish.
Yeah,
Jericho obviously got the retribution in that match.
Was this the blow off pretty much?
Yeah, kind of.
But it didn't really do, and I thought that was a shame because I thought the ending to the Mania 20 match where she snogs the face off Christian, I was like, this will go for months and all the matches will be great. And from memory, it didn't really do that.
Let's look at the backlash, at the aftermath of this event, because it was good, wasn't it? At least it's not WrestleMania Backlash. But during a match between Christian and Jericho, Christian defeated him after interference by Tyson Tomko. Now, this was when he debuted as the problem solver for Christian and Trish Stratus. The following weeks on Raw, Tomko assaulted Jericho until May the 10th, when Jericho then defeated Christian in a steel cage match. He made Christian submit to the walls of Jericho. As a result of that match, Christian suffered a legitimate back injury. After defeating Randy Orton and Batista in a tag match, Tomko attacked Jericho. He powerbombed him through the announcer's table. And on June the 7th, Bischoff booked a match at In Your House Bad Blood between Tomko and Jericho, who then beat Tomko again with an enziguri. So interesting, not the walls of Jericho.
Yeah. He does this. Was it the breakdown that was... the skull crushing finale? He tried several finishes to try and, I mean, the code breaker, obviously. Jericho's one of the masters of reinvention. I mean, look at him now.
I mean, look at the Painmaker or the Champion and etc. Just going back to what we were saying about the crowd. Very quickly. Backlash was the only pay-per-view hosted in Edmonton.
Oh, the only one.
And the second hosted in Alberta, the actual province of Canada, after In Your House 16 Canadian Stampede in 1997.
Well, that's a classic.
That is a classic event. I'm looking forward to covering it. But so that could answer why the crowd was so quiet.
Yeah.
Could do. All right, let's look at the actual card, because the pre-show, the dark match that aired on Sunday Night Heat, was Val Venus defeating Matt Hardy.
Okay.
Yep, glad we missed that one.
Yeah, exactly. All right. If you just said that was on, I could have believed you. I bet that was on the house show loop. And
I think it was.
Yeah, it's time for popcorn.
This is the period where both Val Venus and Matt Hardy didn't really mean anything. Matt was in a bit of a weird sort of cycle at that point. Jeff had gone. Val was
Val
in a
still
weird
Val at this
cycle.
point? Really changed to Chief Morley yet?
Not yet. No, that was coming.
Yeah.
That was coming. Okay, so the first match that aired on the pay-per-view was Shelton Benjamin and Ric Flair. After back and forth action, Flair attempted to use the brass knuckles, but Benjamin squashed him from behind. He then performed a diving clothesline on Flair for the win. Snorefest. And
well, my first notes for this are, I remember thinking, God, Flair looks old.
Yeah.
When this was first on, I remember thinking, God, Flair looks old. And then you look, compared to where he ends up, he looks positively sprightly here.
Exactly. I mean, you think it's 4 years Flair carries on wrestling. It's 2008 that we have the retirement match between him and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 24. So another 4 years of Flair doing this.
See, I thought I was being harsh on Flair because, of course, on turn of years, I'm covering Flair at his height. So to go from that to, I think it was 2 days later, I then watched this. I was like, oh,
he's got old.
Yeah, Father Time has kicked his ass,
and not very well.
No,
Dave Meltzer gave this one. Believe it or not, Dave Meltzer gave this match. Oh, hang on. Dave Meltzer gave this. This is where technology fails me. Gave this match 2.5 stars out of 5.
2.5. That's generous.
That has to be for Shelton.
Oh yeah, Shelton's doing everything he can. I mean, this is just after the period he's beaten Triple H twice.
Yeah.
And I remember, again, I'll go back to my memories of the time. I remember thinking, oh, they're gonna go with Shelton. Good, Shelton's good. Can't quite talk, but they'll stick him with someone, and he'll be one of the top. He'll be one of the upper guys, especially on a program like Raw that doesn't really have.
Yeah,
they've got top heels. They don't really have many top faces. And then it sort of peters out, like nothing really. I mean, they've got top faces, but there's only so many times you can watch Shawn and Benoit go against Triple H, which they've done. This is the rematch already. But I remember thinking Shelton was, not to coin a phrase, but I remember thinking Shelton was the next big thing.
Well, so did I, and I think so did a lot of people, because even in tag team was the world's greatest tag team with Charlie Haas and part of Team Angle. He was there. He was a great worker, but something happened. It wasn't long after this that he got released. I'm going to quickly run through the rest of the card, and then we'll touch on that world title match, because I think that's the one that obviously has got a few comments on. Oh, yeah. So Shelton Benjamin defeated Ric Flair. We then had Jonathan Coachman with the late Garrison Cade. I forgot he was even on the pay-per-view, in fairness. Defeated Tajiri in 6 minutes 25. Victoria defeated Lita for the WWE Women's Championship in 7:22. After that, we then got the attack by Gail Kim and a now bold Molly Holly following the hair loser match at WrestleMania 20. We've mentioned Randy Orton and Cactus Jack. We had the Hurricane and Rosie defeating La Resistance, Robert Conway and Sylvain Grenier in 5 minutes and 2 seconds. Edge went over Kane in 6 minutes 25 in what was a fairly good match.
It was backwards. It was backwards. Don't give your baby face a foreign object.
It made no sense.
Yeah.
It just made no sense. Then we moved on to the triple threat match for the World Heavyweight Championship. This one lasted for 30 minutes and 12 seconds. I've got to say, I was hooked throughout the entire match. Chris Benoit went in as the reigning and defending World Heavyweight Champion. He defeated Triple H, made him tap out to the crossface at WrestleMania 20. He was defending against Shawn Michaels and Triple H in a rematch from WrestleMania 20. He won by submission. Paul, what did you think of this one?
I thought it was a great match, to the point where I watched this match and thought that was amazing. The one at Mania can't be better. So I went back and rewatched the Mania main event after this because I enjoyed this match so much. I was like, it can't be better than that, and they're very comparable. It's just that one of them is the main event to the biggest show of the year. There's with triple threats, it's very much become there's a formula to them. So and so gets knocked out of ring, then this happens, then this happens. With this, because everyone's a big star, I never got the impression I knew who was going to win.
No, there were
having seen the event before and knowing my history, I knew who was going to win. But there are some matches you can tell before that they've already given away who's going to win, and this certainly isn't one of them. There is constant action, constant motion. There is blood. There is emotion. The crowd wake up.
Oh yeah, don't they? Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've not heard a crowd like that to go from one extreme to the other. It felt like they were waiting on this match. This is why they're here, and anything. I mean, they go crazy for. They play the crowd like a violin. They do a ref bump. They bring out Hetna. They get the expected "you screwed Brett," massive chants, and the ending sequence to this match. Not to skip to the end, but the ending sequence to this match may as well have just been okay. Here's what you really wanted for the last however many years it's been since Survivor Series. Well, let's give it to you now. It was amazing. I remember for Mania watching it live and jumping out of my seat when Triple H tapped, and I was on the edge of my seat for this one, which is much harder because the Mania one, obviously, I was watching live. The edge of the seat for this one, I was like, how does this end? Surely they're not gonna, because have you gone over who wins and how?
Not yet. We just gone over the fact it's a submission victory.
It's a submission victory, and Shawn Michaels taps out to the sharpshooter in the middle of the ring. So, in 2 months, Chris Benoit has beaten Triple H with the crippler crossface, and he's beaten Shawn Michaels with the sharpshooter. 2 tap outs on people who don't tap out. I can't remember the last time I saw, Mania 21, Shawn taps out to the ankle lock. But other than that, I can't think of many times they ever were like, yes, by submission. All right, you can beat me by submission. It's an outstanding match.
It really is, and the next bit is going to be quite difficult to kind of discuss because obviously, this is where it kind of takes a turn for the dark because we all know what happened with Chris Benoit. We all know the story. We all know what happened. There is a scene in the WWE Network feed that I'm surprised that they've kept in, and that's a shot of Benoit's family.
Yeah, my chest tightened up.
Yeah,
because I get that, they didn't want to. Maybe they don't want to tamper with things, but they've already started. And to leave that in, knowing what you know. I mean, at the time, Chris Benoit was my favorite wrestler ever. His style and people like Regal and more contemporary, I'll go with Bryan Danielson. That's the style that I will watch 24/7, 365. And obviously, any match Benoit is in, no matter how good, and a lot of good matches, is tainted. It has to be. Because he's in ring, I'll say it now, he's one of the greatest to ever do it. He just is. The problem is he's also a murderer.
I mean, we won't go into the details of it because everybody knows.
Sorry, I don't.
Everybody knows the story of it.
Yeah.
I echo the same sentiments as what you've got. In fact, I haven't watched a Benoit match in its entirety for many, many years, and that's not because of any main reason. It's because of partly because I remember covering the the murder suicide back on the squared circle with Lee, and it was a really weird time when we covered that. But for me, I'm surprised that a company that promotes themselves as being family friendly and being entertainment and with the controversy and stuff, and I'm expect I'll get heat for this, has left a shot of the family in the film, right, in the show. You can't cut Benoit out. You can't do a triple threat without Benoit being in the match. It's impossible. But there are things they can do. And I think out of respect for the family of Nancy and the kids, that should have been cut. And they didn't need to keep that on the airing.
It makes you wonder. I mean, there has been work done to minimize the impact that Chris Benoit will have in network shows. You cannot skip directly to a Benoit match. There is no marker for his matches.
No.
So they've done some work. I just can't understand why they didn't insert a crowd shot from another show. Nobody would have minded. Nobody would have cared. But it really, I mean, we talked about how great the match is, and it is a great match. But in the back of your mind, I was thinking, I can't believe that's in there. I cannot believe that's in there.
Did it taint? Did it taint your enjoyment of Backlash? Because, I've got to sit there. If I forgot for a moment what happened with that double suicide and with Benoit, I've got to sit there and go, do you know what? It's a 4-star pay-per-view match, pay-per-view. It's cracker. There are some really good, mainly because of the 3 main events, mainly because of the triple threat, mainly because of the hardcore match, and mainly because of Jericho and Christian. It's up there as a 4-star pay-per-view.
I disagree.
Nothing taints it.
I think any even without this I don't rate it as highly as you do, but any pay-per-view where he's in the main event and the whole night is built towards him, you have to put an asterisk next to that and say, maybe you don't want to watch this, or skip the end. And it's a shame because it's the best match, if not the second. I'd say it's the best match of the night.
Oh yeah, definitely, without a doubt.
But my mind will always go to what happened. I can't divorce it. And I'll say this right now: when we come to turn of years, and we will get to Chris Benoit, I'll be covering his matches. I'll talk about what a great match it is, because it will inevitably be a great match, and then that'll be it. I will not comment on how I feel, because I do not want every episode of the show to turn into, but don't forget this. I don't want every episode of my show to turn into. I mean, it's an important thing to discuss here because he's the world's champion. It's the main event. It's in his hometown.
Yeah, and the crowd go nuts.
Which is ironic because the first thing they say on his entrance for Mania 20 is now residing in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
So it's his homecoming. So I, nothing against any, but I wasn't saying that we shouldn't have covered it, because we most certainly should have done. But especially because of that shot that's left in, as you say, I can't believe it. But any show with him on, especially with him being as focused as he is, you have to put an asterisk on it and say, great match, but do you want to subject yourself to it?
Yeah. Now, I'm going to be brutally honest with you here. When I picked Backlash, and I gave you the option, when breaking the fourth wall, I gave you 3 options of what we could.
You gave me 4 options.
I gave you 4. Did I give you 4?
Yes, you said I could do career retrospective on Razor Ramon.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I could do that, but just after Scott Hall's untimely passing, I went back and watched all of his matches for myself, and then thought, well, I don't want to do that so soon again.
Yeah, yeah.
Then we were going to do a career retrospective on Triple H, and I looked back and thought I kind of buried him on the Ministry of Slam when they announced it. I didn't mean to, because I expected other people to call in about how great he was. So I kind of tried to play balance with that.
Well,
And
that would have been quite funny.
my call was the only one, and it was like, oh, I just basically said he wasn't as good as everyone. And then you basically said I could backlash, or I could do a topic of my choice. And I thought, you know what? It's not an era I cover very often. It's not an era I go back and rewatch. I looked up the card and saw Cactus and Orton, and I thought, I haven't seen that since it was on. I got to Cactus and Orton and went, I'm watching that.
Yeah, because if you look at any of the promotional materials, it's Cactus and Randy Orton. You know, so yeah, I forgot I gave you 4. I thought I gave you 3, but you know, I gave you 4 options. We picked this one. And part of the reason why giving it you is because it is April the 18th. It's getting close to it. It's, you know, 2004. We're almost 20 years since Backlash 2004, which scares me because, you know, we're already 22 years past certain WrestleManias. It's really quite scary. I knew that match was on there, but that wasn't my reason for picking it. My reason for offering it you was because of that, and also the hardcore match. If I had known that scene was in that program, I don't think I would have offered it.
That singular shot it's such a gut punch.
Yeah,
it's just as you said, they'll delete racially insensitive stuff like Roddy Piper at WrestleMania 6.
Or the comment.
Yeah, they'll delete stuff like that. They'll delete and yet something like that. I know it's much smaller, and historically speaking, it's not. You know, nobody's going to pick up on it in a website. But it is such a how could you leave this in? Yeah, they must have gone through every piece of Benoit footage they had, and looked at it, because you never know what he's going to do.
No. Well, that's put Backlash on a bit of a downer, but it was a cracking show. You said you wouldn't rate it as a 4. What would you give it out of 5? What would you rate the overall pay-per-view of Backlash?
Well, I'll go through my matches. I didn't rate the Shelton Flair match. I absolutely despised Tajiri and the coach. Because we didn't really talk about it. The coach gets a ton of offense in this match.
I know, that's why we didn't talk about it.
And you're like, what's going on? Must have been a rib. Then the third match is
the handicap.
The handicap match. That's a fun match. I put that on a solid 3-star match.
Close. That's what Dave Meltzer gave it 3.25 stars. Out of interest.
No, it wasn't Dave, no.
He gave the coach and Tajiri 0.5.
That's 0. That's 2 more than it deserves.
Yeah. Well, it's 0.5 more than it deserves, really. Next up would have been Victoria and Lita for the.
I actually thought that was really good. I'd have given that 2.5. I thought that was pretty good.
4.75.
What does Dave know? I mean, he got to the Young Bucks. Who cares?
Then it was Randy Orton versus Cactus Jack, and we've already said he gave it 4.5 stars out of 5.
To me, it's a 2-match show.
Yeah,
and as much as I don't want to put a bit of, feel like I'm putting the knife in. What was up with the King and JR?
Oh yeah, they were not on form.
No, they were like an old married couple who just couldn't stand the sight of each other.
They were more like. You could tell they didn't want to be there. No, and that was the unfortunate thing. It was, but there we go. So overall then, what would you give the pay-per-view out of 5 stars?
I'd say it's a solid 3.5 star show. The main events are amazing.
Yeah.
The problem is the low points are real. You can skip I think the 3 matches you can watch. The rest of it isn't even worth it as filler. Just skip to those 3 matches.
Well, if you could skip to the Chris Benoit match, you would. Otherwise, you'll have to watch
that comes straight after. Well, no, it comes after Rosie and Hurricane, doesn't it? Oh God. Okay. All right. Don't skip.
You'll have to watch Edge versus Kane to get to that Benoit match.
Oh
You know the answers there. You know, I'm trying to help you here. It's just not helping, is it? It's not
no,
helping.
no.
So that is Backlash
I feel like a very joke.
2004. Yeah, not the best one we could have picked, was it?
I'm not going to come back, am I? You're going to be like, I don't want that guy. All he does is moan.
You know, I'm never inviting you back onto the show again.
Oh.
One thing that I do want to touch on with you before we go, and we are going to wrap up very soon, is looking at Dynamite tonight, because they've announced some extremely big matches for AEW Dynamite. And one of them is, and I'm just trying to get it up, Samoa Joe versus Minoru Suzuki for the Ring of Honor World Television Championship.
Yeah.
What
Joe's about to go on an RVD style TV title run.
It's going to be good, isn't it?
It's going to be, as Vinnie Jones once said at a terrible UK show, it's going to be emotional.
Yeah. It's going to be good.
Not Casual Combat.
CM Punk is going to be taking on Penta Zero. That's going to be an interesting match.
They announced that like yesterday.
Yeah, they did on Twitter.
What the? Like that is a semi-main, if not main event match on a pay-per-view.
Oh yeah. Like, so is Suzuki versus Samoa Joe.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But also Jurassic Express facing off against Red Dragon for the World Tag Team titles. I mean, this is a stacked episode of Dynamite airing live tonight on Fight TV.
And there is going to be an overrun, so I don't know what they're going to do about that on ITV, but I watch all through Fight, so I'm all good. God, I hope Fight doesn't cut it off.
They won't. The Fight will just keep with it. One prediction before we go. Rampage this week. Texas Deathmatch. Hangman Adam Page versus Adam Cole for the world title. Who is going to walk out as the AEW World Champion?
Hangman, it's not even close. If they make Hangman lose to this build, I think it's a bit wasteful.
He's not had the best run as the champ though, has he?
He hasn't had the best run, but if they were going to make Adam Cole win, it should have been at the pay-per-view, because all that's happened now is it's cooled. It hasn't got hot for me. It's cooled.
Well, the rumor is at Double or Nothing, it's going to be CM Punk versus the world champion. So you're not going to drop the title to Adam Cole tonight and then at Double or Nothing drop it to CM Punk. It's going to be Page dropping it to him, I think.
Or I don't know. I think they might keep it on Page.
Really? No.
They might, because I think what they think they've got to do is put him over names.
Well, true. They might be trying to keep him warm until Omega comes back, and then that could be the rematch.
Yeah, that's my thought. But I don't know when Omega's due back in any way, shape, or form.
He's not due back anytime soon.
No.
But the other one, obviously, the other ones to consider are the Blackpool Combat Club. So John Moxley and Bryan Danielson, because they are, again, two names that are getting a push.
Yeah. Personally, if I was going to give it to anyone, I'd give it to I'd actually give it to Moxley.
God, I thought you were going to say you'd give it to Sammy Guevara then. I was like, please please don't do that. Please don't.
Although, he's an effective heel. He's not supposed to be, but he's...
It's those bots. It's all those bots who put negative stuff about AEW. That's what it is.
But yeah, I can see them giving it to Moxley, because I can imagine they can then say, look at what the Combat Club has done. They've turned a unhinged person into a monster, and do it that way, because I think you risk not turning Punk heel, but I think you run the risk of, it's just an old WWE guy. And I think Moxley is so different than Dean Ambrose was by the end of his run. Yeah, I think a lot of people are like, Dean Ambrose is not John Moxley.
Well, what's going to be interesting is Moxley's contract is reportedly up at the end of May. So
he'll resign.
Oh, of course he will. He's not going to go back he's not going to do a Cody and go back to WWE.
But he is rich enough that he could just be like, I'll do GCW every couple of months. I've got the money.
I wouldn't mind that. That would be quite good. I'd quite like that. Right, Paul. That's it. we've done it. We've done Backlash. We've talked about AEW. I want to thank you again so much for coming on to Retro Chat. And
thank you for the invite. It's been lovely. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, the invite is back out because we are going to be doing a bit of non-wrestling stuff going forward. I realize on Retro
You're doing
Chat.
the bill, aren't you?
Pardon?
You're doing the bill?
We are doing the bill.
Can't wait for that one.
In a couple of weeks. Next week, though, that brings me on to what we're going to talk about. Next week, our topic is going to be the center seat. It's going to be 55 years of Star Trek. There is a brand new 10-part documentary available on IMDb TV on Amazon Prime. We've got it. We've seen it. We're going to be doing a full recap of the center seat next week right here on Retro Chat. Stay tuned to socials because there is a new day and a new time. We'll announce more about that later. The week after that, just so you know, we're going to go morphin because it's Power Rangers.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to that. We are going to be covering wrestling again. We're going to be doing quite a few weeks now of going non-wrestling stuff because I'm wrestled out. I think the audience are wrestled out with Ministry of Slam as well. Yeah. But I'm going to put it out there. SummerSlam, we will be doing the top 10 matches of SummerSlam history. If you caught the top 10 countdown matches of WrestleMania, I'm actually going to put it out there and invite you onto the show for the top 10 matches of SummerSlam.
I'd love that. That'd be great.
Fun. We'll talk about that off air. We'll get that booked in. That'll be near a SummerSlam. There will be more wrestling in between now and the SummerSlam this year, but you will be booked for the top 10 matches of SummerSlam history, as we think.
Excellent stuff. Thank you very much.
Be an interesting concept. Paul, all the very best with the tourney years. Again, give it a plug. When's it out?
The first one was out yesterday, which is the 12th of April.
Yeah, that's it.
Every 2 weeks. Yeah, let's check then. I was like, what's the... Every 2 weeks from then, there'll be a new episode. And we'll hope to keep entertaining you because, as you very kindly said, the feedback's been really nice. Yeah. You come up with these ideas and you think, well, nobody in this country's seen those shows. Is anybody really interested? And I found it really interesting. I'm really happy that other people have. I know my co-host Dave has really enjoyed it. I can't wait to tell him what the response has been like. He does listen to the shows, but he doesn't get much time, so he listens in bits. So I might just wait and see how long it takes him to get to. Oh, we got some nice feedback. Every 2 weeks, it would be quicker, but we have to watch these shows and then record, which is it's a process. I'm really happy that people are enjoying it. Thank you very much for allowing me onto this show to plug it. And if you let me keep going, I'll just keep talking. So cut me off.
I watch and listen to Ministry of Slam, my friend. I know.
I try so hard to not just keep going, but
don't do it. Look, you got your own corner. All right,
it's true. It's not a problem. I'm trying to build an extension onto like MOS Towers. I'm just trying to
come and do mine. It's fine. So the tourney is bi-weekly, available on the podcast feed. All you need to do is go to any podcast provider, search for the Ministry of Slam, click subscribe, and then they will automatically drop into your podcast feed. All of the shows that we have on the network, from the Ministry of Slam to Ministry of Horror to the Retro Chat, are all available on that feed. We're available on our own feed as well if you want to listen to some of the From the Vaults.
What he said. Sorry, like I need to get used to plugging because that was masterful, and I'm just going it's a good show.
Yeah, they're all good shows. Ministry of Slam is airing live every Sunday night at 7 p.m. GMT at the MOS Network across all of social media. This week, Lawrence is back. It's going to be Lee and Lawrence, I'm sure, are going to be talking Dynamite. They're going to be talking Rampage. They're going to be talking NXT Tag Team Champions and all of the news of the week, including what we touched on at the beginning of the show. For the first time in 30 years, a UK stadium show taking place at the Principality Stadium in Cardiff. For the latest wrestling news and views and opinions, plus Merylmania and the MOS Arena. Check them out Sunday live, 7 o'clock GMT at Twitch and on YouTube, and get involved. On a Tuesday at 8 o'clock, again on the MOS Network, it's Ministry of Horror with Tez. Some cracking shows already been produced by Tez and more to come, including me. I'm going on there soon to talk X-Files. So there we go. We also have the Discord, full details of all of the social medias and the Discord across all of the network and Retro Chat in the narrative, both here and on YouTube. All that's left for me to say, Paul, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. All
the very best for turning years, and for everybody else, I will see you next week. New day, new time, live podcast. Won't make a difference. You'll still get it. We will see you all next week. Until then, take care.